Welcome into episode number 2 of Show Me Sports Legacies. Tonight we're going to do an episode we call Building a Resume. We've got a professional scout Hall of Famer talking about what it takes to succeed in baseball. Welcome, I'm your host Jeff Crowley, and we've got panelist Chris Hockenfels back with us tonight. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, how are you doing? It's great to be here again.
It's excellent to be here. Finally dragged him off the road. He just made a road trip up to the Quad Cities. And I want him to tell us about that because this guy is checking out some things around our area related to the Royals and to baseball and having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, we, of course, love the Royals, and we have a couple families from Trenton that we go on a Royals trip just about every year. And sometimes it's a major league ballpark, but sometimes it's a minor league ballpark. And this year we chose the Quad Cities. It's in Davenport, Iowa. It's about a 4-hour drive from Trenton, probably about a 5-hour drive from Kansas City. It's on the Mississippi River, which was flooded the weekend that we went up there. But they've got floodgates for the ballpark. Floodgates were operational, so they played the 3 games when the flooding was taking place. And it is a great ballpark. It was a lot of fun. Minor league ballparks have that aura about them that make them special. Get to see some Royals prospects, have some good food, and they entertain you in a great ballpark, kind of overlooking the Mississippi River. So it was a good time.
I like the nickname of that team, the River Bandits.
The River Bandits. They've got things set up for the kids in left field. Of course, the bridge across the Mississippi in right field. It's very picturesque to sit in the ballpark and have a hot dog and some popcorn and watch 18, 19, 20-year-olds do their thing and trying to be big leaguers and see some good baseball. We saw a pretty good game. I think it was 4-2 was the final. The River Bandits lost, but good competitive game and all around a good time.
My all-time Royals minor league name was the Lansing Lugnuts back in the day.
There are some great names and great mascots and hats. If you like apparel, they go all out to kind of separate themselves, and so you can remember the name, and you get names like the Bees and the Storm Chasers with great hat logos for baseball, and it's a fun time. Now, Major League ballparks are different. They are an experience in and of themselves. We went to Yankee Stadium this year, the cathedral of baseball. Then we went to Quad Cities. So you get to see the difference, and Quad Cities has a big banner above home plate that says ranked the #1 minor league ballpark in the United States by some publication. And I thought it's worth it. It's very picturesque ballpark and very well maintained, right on the river. A fun time for the whole family to go.
Now, when you got back home, getting some air conditioning, watch a little All-Star festivities. Had a lot to watch this time. So what stood out to you going back to the Home Run Derby with Bobby Witt Jr. showing out?
It was a lot of fun just having 4 Royals, first of all, and being represented. Sometimes, in the last 15 or 20 years, there'd be 1 Royal and it'd be a relief pitcher, a utility player. And this year there were 4 Royals. And the thing that stood out to me was that the 4 Royals all got in the game and all performed very well. Salvi got to catch a Royals pitcher in Reagan's. Bobby Witt made some great plays at shortstop. And so the game itself, the American League won. The 4 Royals all got to play and played well. That's the game. Now, before the game was the Home Run Derby. And Bobby Witt, on a national stage, put on a show for everybody. He was in his home state of Texas and made a lot of fun for the crowd who was pulling for him and also Royals fans who were pulling for him. So it was good drama.
He hit 50 home runs over the course of that. It takes so long for that to play out, but it was still compelling at the end. And that last ball in the air, and you're like, get there, get over the wall.
To the deepest part of the ballpark. They tinker with the rules, just seems like about every other year to create drama in the Home Run Derby. They've thrown timers in there, rounds, bracket style, bonus rounds, bonus balls. They've tried it all to create the drama. But the best part about the Home Run Derby is watching major leaguers hit it 450 feet plus into the stands. That's what people want to see. As the saying goes, chicks dig the long ball. And so that's what we want to see. And Bobby hit some bombs to left field. He hit a couple there late in his last round that were just majestic shots. And then his last one to the deep part of left center that didn't quite. I think it hit the base of the wall. It was still fun.
I loved his last one where the hat flew off and the tongue sticking out, and he just looks like a kid, just enjoying the heck out of the whole event.
Having fun with his family there watching and getting to just compete. Players love the home run derby because they can relax. They have friends that are on other teams. It's not competitive in that way. It's more competitive against themselves and how many they can hit out. So they get to enjoy the moment. They bring their kids onto the field. It's just a fun night to do home run derby right before the All-Star game and kind of get everybody ready. It's
nice to see when Major League Baseball does something correctly. Now, I'm going to talk about one thing that we probably agree on, the All-Star uniforms.
I think I sent you a message during the game that I am not a fan of the uniforms. I think they look like slow-pitch softball uniforms. They, for whatever reason, went away from the home whites for the home team and the away grays for the away team. That used to look so sharp that you would have, if it's American League home ballpark, you'd have the Orioles in their home whites and the Royals in their home whites and the Yankees in their home whites. And you got to see who everybody represented. Now it kind of just bleeds together, like you don't know, okay, that he's an American League player. Where's he from again? You don't get to see the Dodgers uniform or the Cardinals uniform. So, yeah, they've made some changes there, too. They'll probably eventually go back to the original whites and grays for the All-Star. For now, they get to put out, and one of my things about baseball, too, is it comes down to money and marketing, but they get to put out these jerseys so they can sell a bunch of them with Bobby Witt's name on the back, even though they're khaki and pink was that the color for the American League team, and
it didn't have any
black and green.
Yeah, I'm in Dallas a lot, and it didn't have any connection to Dallas or Texas. It reminded me of Miami Marlins meets the Arizona Diamondbacks kind of stuff.
And it is cool that they put out a uniform that kids can buy. Their favorite player. At the same time, put an All-Star patch on it. Make a hat that says All-Star or National League or American League and let them wear their Royals jersey or their Cardinals jersey or their Red Sox jersey to represent their team. Because that's a cool part about the All-Star game, too, is every team is represented. Everybody's going to have someone there representing their city, whether it's Tampa or Boston or Colorado, Denver. They're going to have a representative there. They should probably, in my mind, put that jersey on to represent that team.
We had a lot of fun with that, and with the Royals continued to give us some highlights this season, and that's just one of them. Next, we're going to move into an interview that I did with Mike Arbuckle, a member of the Professional Scouts Hall of Fame as of 2015, a longtime scout with the Atlanta Braves, scouting director for the Philadelphia Phillies, and then later assistant general manager in charge of scouting and player development when they won their world championship. Moved over to the Royals and was a senior advisor to Dayton Moore, to the general manager in scouting and player development during the greatest times for the Royals in 2014 and 15. And he's a Trenton, Missouri native. We're going to talk to him. He was in town for a baseball clinic for high school players sponsored by NCMC and the Royals Amateur Development Program. And I was happy to sit out on a pretty hot day, capture some audio, talking to Mike in a shelter just outside of Burley Grimes. Now, you're going to hear some noise in the background because there are cleats running across concrete. There's birds, there's trucks, there's some noise from the wind that particular day.
But Jeff, that one of the greatest baseball sounds of all time is the cleats on concrete or asphalt walking to the field to play. If you played that sound to someone who's been in baseball or played baseball, they're going to know exactly what that sound is of the cleats running across or walking across.
Well, that's why we left it in. But we wanted to give you some real sound. Here we have Mike Arbuckle talking about Royals amateur development and what it takes to be a baseball player. We're talking with Mike Arbuckle, who has been in baseball almost 50 years. 46 years. And everything comes around in a circle, and here he is back out on a hot baseball field in Trenton, Missouri. Talk to us about this Royals Amateur Development Program and your involvement with that and what you're doing here today.
Yeah, as I cut back on my full-time duties in Kansas City, I got involved by accident, really. My great-grandson was playing on a 10U team in the Royals Development Program, and I started to help coach that team. And I saw how valuable this program is. So I've gotten way more involved, and I help with coaching and help coach the coaches with different teams and what have you, just as we try to grow and improve the program. We have programs for the kids ages 9U up through high school. We have multiple camps and clinics over the course of the year. This is our second one actually we've done here. We did one in the winter indoors, and then this is our second one for the older kids here. But we do them throughout the area. One of the areas of emphasis for me growing up here in Trenton and in a rural area was I realized the need for more instruction, more baseball development in a lot of these smaller rural towns. Because the way baseball's set up now, the suburban areas have it all. They have the coaching, they have the money, they have the facilities to develop baseball players. The inner city gets cut short, and we tried to address that with the RBI program. But I felt like there was an additional need out in the rural areas where kids also didn't have the money, didn't have the resources. If they want to play baseball, if they love the game, and we're not going to make them all major league players, but if we can develop baseball fans, we can make them better people, teach them responsibility, teach them accountability, and let them play a game in an atmosphere where they have fun at the same time as they compete. I think we've accomplished a lot. Kind of like spokes on a wheel, we've tried to expand it out into different areas outside the metro area in Kansas City. We're having a camp today in Wichita with over 200 kids there. And I think last year overall we had nearly 8,000 kids in camps around the area. So it's a growing program, and it's a very valuable program in my mind because the emphasis is on, number one, remembering why we play the game, and that's to have fun. We want the kids to compete. We want them to try to win, certainly, and we hold them accountable. But at the same time, there's no yelling, there's no downgrading. If we make a mistake, okay, that's something we have to work on next practice. It's not something that I'm going to yell at you about or make you go run laps because you made a mistake. We need to practice that. And so we'll address those things in practice and work to help players get better. But it's about development in a positive atmosphere is basically what we're trying to accomplish with this program.
I always remember doing youth coaching, even in soccer, especially a sport I didn't know anything about. First thing they taught you was what you're yelling at them about already happened. You're probably missing something else that they should be doing next.
Yes.
And taking their eye off the ball.
Absolutely. Yes, no doubt. Yeah. And I've found through the years, I hate to say it, coaches that do a lot of yelling usually yell because they don't know enough about the game to teach it. So that's just the way they try to handle the player, is just by yelling and make them work harder. And all they're doing, baseball is a game that you got to play with some rhythm and flow. You can't play it tight. You can't play it scared. And so you have to understand how to handle young players so that they're not afraid to be aggressive and make a mistake. Because, okay, we'll figure out how to fix that mistake, but it's not a bad thing because you were aggressive and you made the mistake because you were trying to be aggressive. That's what we want. It's all about the atmosphere that we try to create with young players.
And as a fan, watching the Royals 10 years ago win the ALCS, go to the World Series, and then that team in the following year winning World Championship, one of the things that struck me is Ned was pretty good at letting people be themselves. It's kind of like Andy Reid's philosophy. You be you. You've got these talents. You need to be relaxed, and when the moment happens, you'll be on your front foot doing the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Ned was great at that. He gave players, they were accountable, but at the same time, he gave them freedom. If they made a mistake, they understood, okay, we'll talk about it, we'll figure out how to fix it, but I'm not going to take you out of the lineup because you made that mistake today. You have the freedom to, as long as you're aggressive and you're thinking about game situations and applying things as you should, you'll be back out there tomorrow. And it gives players a level of comfort where they're going to go out and let their natural talents rise to the top.
I got to go up to the College World Series. I'd never been to a College World Series game. Went Wednesday and saw Tennessee and Texas A&M. And I was watching the broadcast yesterday, and I loved a comment. A Texas A&M player was quoted as saying, they said, "What do you like about being at the College World Series?" He goes, "Free food and hanging out with my friends." I mean, it's just simple. What you love, you'll practice, you'll do, and have fun doing it makes you a better player.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, kids that can take that attitude, it's a much easier game. I've seen players with a lot of talent that just beat themselves up constantly, and I've seen kids whose parents beat them up constantly. And those kids have very little chance to succeed, and they're probably going to walk away from the game at an early age. The fact is, the guys that are getting paid are the ones that should have the pressure. But kids that are playing the game because it's fun to play, there shouldn't be a lot of pressure. It shouldn't come from coaches or parents or anyone else. It should be something where they're going out there and just playing because they like to play the game.
One of the players that I watch that I think embodies that, and he's the last of his generation of Royals players, Salvador Perez. How has he sustained excellence over 10 years when a lot of those guys that had a lot of talent, they're out of the league now?
Yeah, a lot of it goes back to Salvy's mental approach. Salvy just loves to play. Salvy loves to come to the ballpark. He loves to be around his teammates. And so even though he's getting older, and usually big-bodied guys like him, it's harder for them to keep going. But he has gone well beyond what most guys his age would be doing, especially at that position. And a lot of it is because of his mental approach. He's really amazing. It's hard for a young player not to give it all every play when he sees Salvy doing it at his age. Salvy becomes a leader by example just because of the way he loves the game and the way he goes about playing the game. He plays it like he's 15, 16 years old, having fun on a playground.
How about with the Blake Mitchells of the world, the top prospects? Is there a Royals way for the development of those players?
Yeah, we have a very extensive program, much more so than what clubs did a few years ago. I mean, now it's not only the instruction on field, but we have mental skills coaches. We have a nutritionist with every minor league team who sets up all the meals so our kids are eating healthy all the time. We have rovers going through that are in charge of each. We have a catching coordinator, we have a pitching coordinator, an assistant pitching coordinator, a hitting coordinator, an assistant hitting coordinator, as well as those coaches with each team who specialize in those areas. So there is a blueprint set up for every player, and as they move, that blueprint passes on to the next manager so that the coaches and the manager and everybody knows when that player walks in, if he's going from Columbia to Quad Cities, they know exactly what he's been working on, what we still have to focus on, what we need to work on if it's off the field stuff. He's a little immature, we gotta work on that. If it's a focus issue, we gotta work on that. So it's a very extensive program now. Literally millions and millions of dollars are spent every year down below on all those players. We can have 160 players in your minor league system. A lot of money is spent on developing that 160, trying to get that 26 to the big leagues who are winning big league players.
As a scout for the Phillies, for the Braves, working with the Royals, obviously when you watch Bobby Witt Jr., you see those skill sets, but what do you see? What are the things that jump out at you, and maybe with players that you had success signing and developing?
Probably one of the best was Chase Utley. I saw him out of high school. He was a second-round pick by the Dodgers who didn't sign, went to UCLA. But I really liked his bat. I really liked his swing. He was a skinny kid, didn't have a lot of strength, but the ball still jumped off his bat. Defensively, he was playing shortstop, and that wasn't going to happen. I was thinking we got to figure out where this guy's going to be on the field. But each year, as I would go back, and UCLA always had players to see, or they were playing somebody in the Pac-12, so you see those schools about every year. So I would see Chase as a freshman and as a sophomore. Every year, he was at second base, and he was getting better defensively. So that told me, one, he had work ethic, and number two, he had aptitude. So I saw him improving. By the time he's a junior, and we're picking around the middle of the round, I forget now, 14, 15 maybe, I decided I was taking Chase Utley because the bat had continued to even get better. And now I was confident in the defense, and I was confident in the defense because I was had confidence in the work ethic and the aptitude and the feel to play the game that I had saw him develop over 3 years. So a lot of times when you draft a guy, it's not a guy that you've just seen on one look. It may be a guy that you followed over time. Now it could work conversely. I went in one time to KU. They were playing the University of Texas. And Texas had a couple kids on their team that were going to be first, second round picks. So I went in to see them. And KU's throwing this pudgy left-handed pitcher, looks like Babe Ruth on the mound. And he is going through Texas like nothing. I mean, all their good hitters didn't matter. And this guy competed like crazy. So we get to the draft, and about 10th or 12th round, I said, give me that left-hander's card. And we take him. It's Michael Zagorski, who pitched in the big leagues for us in Philadelphia, and then unfortunately tore a rotator cuff in his hip, and then tore one in his shoulder, and then an elbow. But he was a guy that Jerry Lafferty had seen him and liked him, but he wasn't a premium guy. But when I saw him in that setting against a really good group of hitters and the way he competed and controlled the game, back of my mind, I walked out of the park saying, I want to get that guy somewhere in the draft.
What's it like to come back to your hometown? I mean, the rumor was you'd retired, obviously, and now you're kind of back in the flow. What is it that draws you back to clinics like today?
Yeah, I kind of got back in because, number one, I got a little bored. But number two, they kind of lured me back. Well, would you do a little part-time? Would you do this? Would you do that? And then once you start, well, you went here, maybe can you go over here and look at this group and what have you. But it's been good. I love to come back because it's a chance to give back. You know, I go back to the days when I was coming up. I can remember the hot days right here on this field with Bill Simmons, who was our junior high school coach and ran the summer program. And he's behind the plate every day umpiring as we play games in Little League and Pony League. That was back before the days where we were playing night games and parents were involved. You just came out and you had your teams and you played. Don Sturgis, who coached Little League one summer and really helped us. Got to Legion Ball, Jim Griffith, who for years coached the Legion team, helped me get better. Frosty Fisher, who was our Legion coach my last couple years, same thing, gave me opportunities. All this was donated time by these guys, never got a dime, but they allowed all of us opportunities. It gave me a chance to at least go play at the college level. It gave Rich Griffith a chance to play at the college level. John Hamilton, of course, went to play football, but he could have played baseball at MU. It gave several of us opportunities beyond high school, and of course then we had no high school baseball. It was only American Legion. Right. So our season ran from the end of May until first week of August, basically. So it was a short season. If it weren't for those guys, I would have never gotten into baseball and had the opportunities that I have had to have a pretty good career and be able to support my family well and what have you. And I don't forget all those people because they were very instrumental and important in providing an opportunity for a whole lot of us to go on and do other things.
Sort of amazing looking back. You're running a recreation program in King City, and you come over to Trenton, you go to get your graduate degree, and all sorts of things kind of spun out of that. Probably you didn't suspect that it would take you that direction.
No, not at all. No, I was a graduate assistant at the University of South Alabama working with pitchers. That's why I tell young players all the time, you never know who's watching, so always play hard, play the game right. And a scout came in to cross-check a couple players from a team we were playing. And he saw me pregame hitting fungos, and he recognized me. And he called me over, and he said, I really like the way you played the game. He said, do you think you'd have interest in being a scout? I had no idea what scouting involved at that point. My goal was to be a Division I head coach, but it was professional baseball, so count me in. So I started as an unpaid bird dog for about a month or two, and then I got on part-time, and I got a big salary of $1,200 a year. So I cut my teeth scouting part-time on that $1,200 a year. And then the Braves had an opening in 1980 for a full-time scout in the Midwest. And because of my experience and recommendations from guys in the field who had seen me work again as a scout, I got the job with the Braves. And then was fortunate. I've always been a believer. I've never worried about the next level. If you do a really good job at what you're doing, people will take notice and opportunities will come. So really the only job I've ever applied for in baseball was the job with the Braves. And when I got that, then I got promoted to a regional supervisor. Then my last couple years I was a national supervisor. Then the Phillies called. I had an opportunity to go there. I actually interviewed at the World Series in 1992. Got the scouting director's job in Philadelphia. Eventually took over the minor league side as well as the scouting department, then became assistant GM, what have you. So I've been fortunate to have a really good run in baseball, but it's because I had the work ethic that a lot of people in Trenton, Missouri, and including my parents, helped instill in me, because I've always believed I may not outsmart them all, but I can outwork them all. So if you take that work ethic and put it to use, pretty good chance you're going to come out okay.
Thank you so much. The last thing I'm going to say is sometimes people look at levels of baseball, whether it's summer wood bat baseball or NCMC, and they don't realize that this is really a platform for people to continue to play the game, get better, and maybe be seen by somebody.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we have scouts all over the country and internationally, and other clubs do as well. The good players get seen. Very seldom is there a player today that just gets overlooked. We're out there and we see them, and we have such a network that very few times will we actually miss a guy. if you're playing and you're good, we'll see you.
Mike, thank you so much for talking with us. I know there's more to do today, and I appreciate the time. Hope we'll get to talk to you soon again as we put a podcast together that we're calling Show Me Sports Legacies. People that love the game talking about it, finding people that came from small places and have done big things like yourself. So we really appreciate your time.
I enjoyed it, and always good to get back home for a little bit.
It's always good to get back home. That's a good way to close out an interview like that. Really some interesting insight from somebody that's really been in the game for a long time.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He loves sports. I'll tell you all you need to know about Mike Arbuckle. So when I was AD at Trenton, had kids coming up playing basketball. It would be a random Tuesday night at the Hamilton tournament, 9 o'clock game. Gym's half full at best. And I look over my shoulder, and up in the stands, Mike and his wife watching his grandson play basketball. And I'm thinking, how, with his schedule, did he get here to watch this basketball game? But that's the kind of guy he was. He loved his family. He loved sports. He wanted to watch. And being present is one of his big attributes. And he talks about that kind of being the backbone of being a scout, is being there, because you need to see these people. You need to see how good they are. And if you want to watch a good movie about scouting, Trouble with the Curve is a good one that has that theme in it of there's always going to be the hot shot prospect out there, and everybody's going to know who they are. But sometimes it's that other guy that is working hard ends up being the diamond in the rough, and that's kind of exciting. And again, what a lot of us love about baseball.
I remember Jerry Lafferty talking about finding Gerard Dyson in the 50th round. Imagine that. Imagine that.
There's a lot of guys out there that play baseball. Just thinking about the levels of minor league baseball from single A to high A, double A, triple A, all those guys, all that talent trying to rise to the top and get to a major league ballpark. And you got to sift through them all if you're a scout, from the bottom to the top.
I enjoyed about you never know who's watching. Every opportunity that you play in front of people is an opportunity to impress them. With your effort, with your focus, NCMC and local programs that we have around here give people that opportunity. Albert Pujols, we talked about in the last episode, played at
Maplewoods, Fort Osage High School, Maplewoods Community College. Someone saw him. One of my favorite quotes about Albert Pujols is someone asked one of the scouts, how did you miss out on him? You know, you could have picked him right before the Cardinals did in the 13th round. And he said, yeah, but everybody passed on him the first 12 rounds. And it just took to the 13th round before someone said, that kid looks pretty good. And there you go. He hit 700 home runs and World Series champ and an all-star and future Hall of Famer.
Well, Mike is such an asset to this community. He continues to be an asset to NCMC's programs. And I think it's about time he gets honored somewhere. We got Burley Grimes Field. There's some other naming opportunities, and I think something needs to happen. And that facility is due for some upgrades. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but I'd really like to see that get spruced up a little bit and have that opportunity for Mike.
A topic we could talk about all day is that facility has got a lot of history, especially with the name Burley Grimes, who is a Major League Hall of Famer who had a connection with this town, and all of the players that played there have a connection to that field. So that would be a nice thing to see.
We talked about building a resume. How about building a Hall of Fame resume? That's a whole different kind of animal. And we've got a player, Salvador Perez, that was talked about in this interview. 13 years in the major leagues, 1,508 hits now. He's accumulating some real interesting counting statistics. 268 average, 263 home runs, and 874 runs batted in. He's now top 10 in home runs for catchers. He's the only primary catcher. You know how these things are kind of weird, who did it on a Tuesday and then he did this on a Thursday,
Right,
kind of
right.
thing.
You can manipulate stats just about any way you want.
But these are pretty good ones. 9+ All-Star teams made, 5+ Golden Gloves, 4+ Silver Sluggers, and 1 World Series MVP. Pretty special career that he is putting together.
And if you like modern statistic, if you're a Moneyball fan, he's got a career WAR of 34, which is great for a catcher. And he led the league late in his career in home runs and RBIs, which is unbelievable that he led the league in home runs and RBIs, or tied for home runs and RBIs. Early in his career success, late in his career success, and I think the chip that's going to get him in is the World Series MVP. That's the chip that he's got, or the token that he can slide across the table when it comes time and say, how many guys got this that are not in the Hall of Fame? I think his numbers might be good enough now to get him in on his second or third ballot. I don't think his numbers right now are first ballot. I think if he plays a couple more years, he has a chance to be a first ballot.
I like to compare him to another Missouri guy. Spent 19 years with the Cardinals, Yadier Molina, and he's widely considered in at this point. He's just in that waiting period. He had 19 years, 2,168 hits, 277 average, pretty comparable. A few less homers, 176, but a few more RBIs, 1,022. You look at Salvi's numbers, couple more years of productive 25 homer, 70, 80 RBI kind of seasons plus. He's right there. He's right there with those numbers.
I think that when it's all said and done, those two are the two best modern catchers with longevity that we have. I think one is the defensive catcher in Yachty, who all the accolades with how he managed the game, how he manages pitchers. People just stopped stealing on him in his heyday because he was so good at controlling the run game. And then the offensive catcher. Salvi was a average to above average defensive catcher, but he was above average in offense. He hit a lot of home runs, a lot of RBIs, good slugging percentage, and he's got a couple big post-season hits, the wild card game. He's got the winning hit in that. I think he's there. I think he can cement it in 2 or 3 years, like he said. But I think he's now entered the chat, as they say.
Absolutely. And the other thing about him is we're just blessed that we've had people like Buck O'Neil and Salvador Perez in Kansas City. Their love of baseball and their enthusiasm and just the way that they can spread that love to people. He's got the best smile in baseball.
And how many kids grew up watching him and know him for the Salvi Splash? He was always excited for players. And at the end of a game, it didn't matter if it was a regular season game against the Texas Rangers in August, and both teams were out of the playoff race. Someone got a big hit, and they were the player of the game. Salvi was going to catch him after the game and dump Gatorade over their shoulder and give him the Salvi Splash because he was having fun, and he spread that joy to all his teammates and fans.
I was interested in Hall of Fame numbers, and as of about 2010, there were only 6 Latin players in the Hall of Fame, and the Latin influence in baseball is so strong that those numbers are picking up, and we're going to see a lot more.
And this kind of circles back to the scouting topic with Arbuckle, is the scouting has really shifted in the last 10 to 15 years with an emphasis on Latin America, and there's scouts everywhere in Latin America looking for those gems in Venezuela and Costa Rica and Puerto Rico and Mexico and Cuba. That's exciting too, because there's players out there that are really talented that would not normally have the means to get to the major leagues, and now they do.
I just want to say thanks to Dayton Moore and the front office and the ownership of the Royals that they stuck with Salvi. You know, there's a lot of people that say trade him when they have this value, but it's beautiful to see this kind of bookend to his career and the leadership that he's given this young team. We're blessed as fans that he's not gotten traded away.
Right, and I was really hoping for that for him and for Alex Gordon, because I think the Royals have a few players that were lifetimers. That's always been a cool thing about the Royals. And George Brett, maybe the most famous, is if you can stick out your whole career for a city and play for them the entire time. Alex Gordon ended up doing it, and I sure hope Salvi does too.
Some final thoughts. We want to thank Mike Arbuckle for being so generous with his time. Thanks to Donnie Hillerman, NCMC baseball coach, for setting that up and keeping me apprised of that upcoming clinic. I want to thank our panelist, baseball expert, Chris Ogkenfels. Thank you for listening. The third podcast will be coming out in a week to 10 days, and we just have some fun with this and hope you're enjoying it too.
Yeah, spread the word. Tell your friends. I've had a great time being on the podcast so far with you in the first 2 episodes, and look forward to the next one.